In this video, I am going to demonstrate the typical setup of Micronor's Zappy 400 software. This software was designed for Micronor's MR320 fiber optic incremental encoders and operates using a PC running Windows. In this tutorial, I will explain how to connect the controller to a PC, an example of setting the analog outputs, and troubleshooting tips. This software provides the ability to change parameters, live monitoring of the encoder's position and speed, and troubleshooting tools. To get started, download the most recent version of the Zappy software from Micronor.com or the supplied CD and connect your MR320 via USB, Modbus RTU RS485, or RS232 using a converter cable. At the main page of Zappy, you are able to select the protocol, the interface, and the device address. If using a MR320 with firmware versions earlier than 2.0, make sure to use Serial ISO. The firmware version can be found on the silver label on the outside of the controller. For newer versions of the MR320 controller, we suggest using the Modbus RTU protocol. I will be using Modbus TCP/IP for this demonstration. If using USB, Windows will assign a virtual COM port to the connection. Select the corresponding COM port assignment from the pull-down menu. Use the device address 234 as this is the default common call. If busing multiple MR320 controllers or using Modbus TCP/IP, please refer to Application Note AN119 for further instructions on setting up the controller. Click Connect and Upload to PC. Here you can see the various programmable parameters of the controller. To begin, open the Zappy instructions in the top right corner of the software. Here you can find a brief description of the analog connections, as well as a list of all the parameters and what their function is. For further information, refer to the MR320 and Zappy manual that can be found online. In the encoder section, you can see all the registers that can be adjusted to your specific application. Our resolution for the software is dictated by the resolution of the encoder, here shown to be 360 pulses per revolution. The software has many options for the analog voltage output. For this example, we will use voltage mode 2, which correlates to the plus or minus 10 volt position monitoring. Change the voltage scale to 720, which represents 2 full rotations at this resolution. Check and see that the count mode is set to 0 so as to count only once per pulse. Lastly, change the reset on count value to 720 in order to set the voltage back to 0 after 2 turns. Click Save to Unit. As a precaution, click Upload to PC to ensure that the values were saved to the controller. Under the Operate tab, you can monitor a live update of the encoder. I have also gone ahead and set up a multimeter to show the analog voltage output of the controller. Notice that as I turn the encoder, the voltage output begins to ramp up from 0 volts. At one rotation, or a position of 360, the voltage is at the halfway point of 5 volts. After 2 full rotations, the voltage reaches 10 volts and then resets back to 0 volts. Selecting the Diagnostics tab will show you various monitoring points within the MR320. Click Analyze Receiver Settings. If the encoder is still, the encoder cannot take a snapshot of these internal points, and thus the red framed RPM too slow message will appear. If this message appears while the encoder is in motion, make sure to verify the power supply is providing the correct voltage and current. Also check all connections. Here we had a loose connection. make sure to press in the connector until you hear a click. Press Analyze Receiver Settings and be sure to make sure that the optical receiver settings are within the specified ranges. If all connections are correct and the RPM too slow message still appears, perform a manual power calibration while the encoder is turning and check that the receiver values return to a stable state. If a problem still exists, you can save a diagnostics report and send it to Micronor so we can further instruct you on resolving your issue. Thank you for watching Micronor's Zappy software tutorial. Please feel free to contact Micronor for additional information and sales support. Product data sheets, instruction manuals, reference drawings, and CAD files can be found at www.micronor.com.